Hello YouTube, Ronin Kaze. Oh, I did it. This is version 2. I screwed up the first one. What you're going to see, this is the promised Linux footage. This is OBS on Catchio, which is a Linux-based distro. It's like a gaming distro. And I have Steam, and I've loaded Star Wars Old Republic on Steam. And I'm skipping the Vulcan shaders right there. And I'm going to get to put in my credentials. I'm putting that in. So basically what I'm showing you is this game's playing flawless on Linux. Later I'll show you I have all the graphics up on the highest it can go. This is a older gaming system. I'll get you that maybe in the notes. Hopefully. In the description. All right, so Star Wars in 2014, LucasArts was sold to Disney, and they just said anything before now is not canon. Which is disturbing because there's a Star Wars game called Knights of the Old Republic, and that's about Revan, and it's a great game and a great story. And this is kind of uses some of that lore, and there's a lot of lore in here, and they just gotten rid of it. So I'm just putting that out there. So Star Wars, on the face of it, in 1976 or 77 when it came out, and I saw it, I didn't see it, you know, when it first came out. I think my mom took me there on a Saturday, a matinee, after it had been out for some months, or like at $1 film or whatever. How it was back in the day. And I had never seen anything like it. There was nothing like it on there at all. So one of the things that was great is that you have this story which seems like it's, you know, a story of good and evil. I'm going to try to turn that down a little bit on some of the other videos that bleeds through. It's a story about good and evil on the one hand. As you do some research on original Star Wars, I think George Lucas talked to Joseph Campbell about the hero's journey, and the stories based after that. And then there's, you know, a bunch of other things that Star Wars was based on, maybe the Seven Samurai and those kind of things. I don't remember exactly. And that's not the scope of what I'm trying to talk about, is, you know, what Star Wars is and where it was, where it came from, and all that stuff. Really, what I'm trying to talk to you about is that there's like a good and evil aspect to it. So obviously, when I first was growing up, I wanted to be good, you know, and they use the colors to symbolize that, you know, you know, Luke's wearing white and Darth Vader's wearing black. And it seems like they're never going to get together. At least in that movie, they never get together. They're never going to reconcile the difference. And so what happens, you know, fast forward, you see all the other movies, and they make a bunch of other movies, and it gets more and more morally ambiguous. And really when, you know, Darth Vader turns into Darth Vader, that's kind of the point. And it seems in that movie, in those movies, it's pretty obvious of what's, you know, what's good and what's evil. When you get in the games, and especially Star Wars Old Republic, you get to make choices all the time, and there's a bar that, you know, if you take mainly light side choices, your light side goes up quite a bit, and there's some pieces of gear that are unlocked for light side, and the same thing with dark side. But they also do a good point of going through, looking at the what the Jedi believe and what the Sith believe. And kind of during the middle of playing that game, I eventually switched over. I don't believe in the Republic or the Imperial side of it. That's not kind of what I would choose, right? So there's a lot of different goods and evils. Maybe the Jedi seem more, to me now, they seem like more restrictive. But they're for the Republic, which is for a lot of people's rights. So it's kind of like, well, they're kind of bad in one way, but they're trying to represent something, maybe a good government or the type of government I might like. And then, you know, you look at the Sith and you do a quest kind of early on where you go through this Sith credo. You're discovering these holocrons and you're getting these, this mission. And you got to kind of say the mantra that the Sith have. And then you're kind of like, well, there's nothing really wrong with that. So ultimately, the game is constantly moving you back and forth between these two different things. And I would say when you have so many binary choices and there's so many different variants of it, it almost becomes a circle. Like, you know, I'm this way, I'm this way, I'm this way, I'm this way, I'm this way. And eventually I got all the angles covered of the differences. And sometimes the good is on one side and sometimes the bad is on the same side. So it's interesting. And it gets you thinking about what's going on in your real life. So what I'm doing in this mission, my master, this is a junior character. I'm on the first planet off the starter planet, and my master's sick. So I've been tasked to find out what's making her sick. And they're like, if you find this holocron, you're going to be able to help find her and cure her. So that's what I'm doing. And when I first started in the gameplay, I was using a sword, a vibro sword, because I'm not really, you know, I'm not into the lightsaber thing. But I switched to a lightsaber so you guys could see the lightsaber, because some people are into that. And also in this game, you have a companion, and the companion you can make to either heal, do damage, or be a tank. And when you make it on heal, you're basically unkillable unless you really, really, really mess up. So it's a great game because you mainly just focus on the story. And that's what's fantastic about this. And you have those 8 stories like I've mentioned. But getting back to this binary choice between good and evil, what ends up happening with all these choices, Imperial or Republic, Sith, Jedi, am I a Stormtrooper or am I a Guardian of the Republic? You know, am I a smuggler or am I an Imperial agent? So like all the classes have an antithesis to them. And what you're going to find is life's not black and white, right? It's kind of like and some of the sides are never going to get together. What's interesting is when you play one of those classes, not how it's supposed to be played, right? So they originally made the game with the story. In the story, you were like either a Sith warrior or let's say a Jedi guardian, and you have 2 different stories. But what if you play the Sith warrior story as with the skills of a Jedi guardian? And the most stark example of that, well, there's 2 really good examples. The tanks are the tanks, the healers are the healers. But in the damage dealers, you have like a Jedi Republic trooper versus a bounty hunter, mercenary. They fill the same role on each side, but they have different weapons and they have different ways they look at playing. And the same thing with the Imperial agent and the smuggler, right? They have 2 different missions. And so you're constantly seeing, you know, these differences. And that's kind of like everything. So partly what this is just a demonstration of is I'm playing the game on Linux, and that's kind of what I told you. I play it on Linux or I play it on a Mac. I can play it pretty much on anything, or a Windows handheld PC. So some of these things are just never, each of those operating systems are different. What I did when I had Catchio, I used KDE, and I could set the KDE in a Mac, the minimize, maximize, and close windows are on the left side of a window. So in KDE, I made that the default behavior. So like 2 of my machines that I use more often, that's where I close, minimize, and do the things for the window behavior. Doesn't mean it's good, bad, indifferent. It's just that it's a different interface. And it's not like Windows. They handle things differently. I think I told you in the last video, I ran into a problem where I had to mount an external drive. And so now, why is etc/fstab important? Because it automatically mounts those drives. So I had to go back in. I went to play the game. It didn't recognize the drive, so I had to go back in and add the drive. And it was easy to do, but that's why you need to do the etc/fstab. That's why you got to learn how to do some of those things. There's a workaround. So what's interesting about Linux, it makes you understand, doesn't make you understand. It gives you the opportunity to understand everything you're doing. You can just cut and paste stuff and you're not going to learn anything. And the object isn't to learn anything. The object is to, number one, what's the biggest thing about Linux is, here I'm talking to these Jedi. They're in this holocron that are supposed to give me knowledge to get my master. And they're like, their spirits have been put into that little square thing. And I got the speed going up a little bit faster so their voices sound funny. But one of the things about Linux is that you control, it's a finite control, it's a discrete control of everything. And it doesn't take, once the game's running, I don't even worry about Linux. Update and it's fine. I'm just not getting tracked with everything. And I don't use Chrome or Chromium in that. I use Brave when I'm in that. I'm trying to reduce my footprint that way. But the Mac, I'm sure, is absolutely capturing everything I do, and the Windows does that. And in the videos, I'm doing an AI summary of the video. I don't always know how to do that. And I'll kind of go over my process sometime in the future, if that's interesting to everyone. Kind of my setup. But Star Wars Old Republic specifically is a great game because it's overtly irreconcilable, right? You have two sides that are always against each other. But as you dive into it, like everything, it's a little more nuanced than that. So it's not so easy to just say it's one thing or other. Now you're seeing me change the graphics and changing the character tab. So, you know, what I want is to have a view of, you know, none of these nameplates on everyone, because that's a little bit aggravating in the gameplay. Thanks again for going to the channel. I'm going to try to do the coffee thing today. I'm recording this video early. You can see it's light out. So I don't need as much of my free monitor stuff. And there's a lot of movies like that that are, you know, that talk about good and bad. But a really good movie isn't, you know, there's levels to it. I think of a movie like Sicario, which it seems in the beginning, it's obvious who the good guys are. And then as you go along, you're not so sure, and as you go along, you're not so sure, and that's what makes those kind of movies good, is it make you consider those kind of things. And so we face these things every single day. You internalize most of them, and you have a default filter that you set things on. I'm going to act this way. When I hear this, I'm going to do this. When I was a philosophy major, when I was in college, and I was dating, I was a jackass, right? I'd ask people litmus test questions. Litmus testing are strips that test the pH of the water or a liquid to see if it's base or acid. So those are questions like, do you believe in the death penalty? And do you believe in other different things, right? Those are just the things that kind of separate liberals and conservatives. But in reality, those questions are a lot more nuanced. And as I've gotten older, they've gotten a lot more nuanced. For sure, I've become a little more conservative as I've gotten older because I've just seen more things. I remember when one of my sons was talking about one of the elections, and they were like, hey, we're going to get free education for everyone. I said, all you're going to do is make everyone that works at McDonald's going to have college education, so it's going to be worthless. And why do I got to pay for it? So I'm not immune to those kind of things, not right or wrong. It's just at that point, that's what I thought. So again, I'm going to try to work on the coffee thing so you guys can comment if you want. And if you'd like to donate, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for helping to bring the channel back alive. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to watch. Have a good day. Ronin Kaze out.